Hello and welcome. So I am Kevin Smith with Coffee Smith Roasters.
And I am Della Carr. I am with Singing Wheel Ceramics.
And so we're here to solve one massive problem that I have. A little bit ago, like a couple weeks back, the coffee that I have been using for my medium roast Peru completely sold out. That's a thing that happens. You know, coffee is inherently agricultural and harvests sell out. And even if they didn't, you probably wouldn't want to be using, something harvested in 2017 and, 2019.
Yeah, no, that's going to definitely destroy the taste and the flavor of the coffee.
Green coffee does have a good shelf life, but a year afterwards, it's less than ideal.
No, I don't want to take my chances on that.
So I reached out to my importer and I was like, hey man, I need a new coffee. So he sent me a bunch of different samples. So I thought it'd be fun if we did a taste test of a bunch of different coffees.
I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, I am so excited.
So in front of us we have a variety of things. The coffee is all samples that I roasted for today. And the vessels which contain the coffee, you are solely responsible for.
Yes, that I am. I first dabbled in pottery back in college. And afterwards, I didn't have access to a wheel or any type of studio until about 2 years ago when Liddit's Clay Studios opened up, which has a use very similar to a gym where you buy a membership. And the gentleman who runs it also teaches classes and is a teacher. And that's when I finally got back into it. And only just recently, about a year ago, did I start my Instagram page and started getting to the more business side of pottery and ceramics. But it's really solely for my own enjoyment. And I'm starting to, with the help of you, Kevin, and so many others, get into the business side of it and get out into the world and put my name out there.
I guess I kind of broke the rules with coffee because I decided to start a business first and then acquired the passion along the way.
Yeah, that's a little backwards, but hey, whatever works.
Hey, So I guess I think we'll start at this end. So 2 of these coffees I was able to acquire directly from a farm in Colombia. I didn't have to go through an importer. That farm is actually big enough that they're set up to do importing into the U.S. themselves. So that's really, really cool. That's actually a really awesome farm. The family that owns the farm, they bought it about 12 years ago. And and when they bought it, they tasted the coffee and they were like, it's good, but it's not really up to specialty coffee standards. So over the course of the last 12 years, they bought a lot of new coffee plants and got a lot of better varieties. And they put a huge amount of work into it. And last year into this year is the first harvest that they got. They said, okay, we really feel that this is up to specialty coffee standards.
Okay.
And so they sent me several pounds of 2 of their coffees to try. So these I have tasted before. The other 3 I have not.
Okay,
so
good.
The first is a geisha, which for anyone that does not know, geisha is a very, very specific variety within the species of Arabica. So there are 2 basic species of coffee. Arabica is the most common, and Robusta is the next after that, and you don't get quite as many interesting flavors, but you would get a lot more nitrogen and a lot more caffeine, which is why it's typically used as a component of espresso blends. But this is not that. This is a Colombian geisha.
This is where you're going to get more of those flavor profiles.
Yeah. And everything here I roasted pretty light just to get a general idea of where the profile is at.
Okay.
So when I end up releasing the actual roast, it'll probably be a little bit darker, just based on where I think the balance is best at.
Okay.
So we can start off with the Colombian geisha, and let's see how this goes.
It seems very acidic right off the bat, but that just seems to be more of a flavor rather than a feeling, especially on the tongue or the back of my throat. It has a very fruity scent.
It's a touch floral, too.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not normally big on, but I feel like this isn't out of hand.
No, and it's very smooth. It's extremely smooth. Oh, that's delicious. Oh, that is very good.
I like that.
Is there a little bit of a nut?
I would expect there to be. I get that out of a lot of Colombian coffees.
Very mild. Very mild in the back.
I wonder if that might be... So, this is the first roast I did of all of these. And so I'm sure that there are some, defects, little things I need to tweak for the roast. I'm wondering if the roastiness might be something I need to address. I could shorten one particular phase of the roast to try to reduce that a little bit. Or do you think it would be better to leave that in there?
Honestly, I would leave it in there because it seems to give it more dimensions. And I know you don't necessarily like putting cream or milk in your coffee. I know that's like sacrilege. Oh my gosh. But honestly, I think it would add a silkiness to it. It wouldn't really alter the flavor much. I don't think. I have tried it before where I don't add any form of sweetener whatsoever, just enough, but not to the point where it's like, oh, is there even coffee in this mug? But it actually mellowed and gave a silkiness to the flavor, if that's even a thing.
It did feel like it had pretty decent body. So with the ratios I used here, it was 8.5 grams to 150 grams.
Okay.
So it's not super strong.
No, it's not, but it's really delightful. That's really good.
So this next one, the Arabica, comes from the same farm.
Okay.
But it's a different variety.
Right. Let's give this one a try.
So the geisha is a very special finicky variety, and it's very difficult for the farmers to do that well.
Okay.
And the Arabica is a quote unquote more typical.
This
kind
is
of
more
coffee.
of your standard.
Yeah. I think that's even more nutty and roasty than the other one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It still has some nice brightness, maybe a touch of citrus.
It is like, I definitely taste the citrus, and it leaves kind of like this feeling in your mouth, almost velvety on your tongue. Just a little bit. That's
probably from the oils in the body, because this is the way that I brewed for this style of tasting. There's no filtration whatsoever, as opposed to if you were to do your drip machine or a pour over and pass it through a paper filter, it catches a lot of those little, what they call, it's called fines. It's the coffee dust that's created when you chop up coffee beans into the specific grind size you go for. So you're going to get some of those fines, but you're also going to get all of the oil.
The oil, honestly, it does add an extra flavor, but honestly, after trying just these two back to back, the Colombian, I would prefer the geisha.
Oh, you do?
The geisha seems to have so many more different flavor notes in it than the Arabica. But the Arabica is still good. But if I do have to make a choice, it would definitely be the geisha. And the way that you have roasted it, it just brings out all those elements in the flavor, the nuttiness, the fruitiness, the slight floral, and it's extremely smooth. So definitely, this is my favorite out of the two.
These two I have, at my place, I have made espresso for both of these. And the thing about the geisha, I think that I just need to improve the roast a little bit. But the acidic quality of coffee is what's providing the bright, interesting, fruity flavors.
Right.
And but to what extent it's a tasting note and to what extent it's an acidic off flavor is that depends on how good the roaster does their job.
Of course.
So I feel that for the citrus notes that are present, I think that the acidity is a little bit higher than it should be. So I think that I need to improve the roast on that a little bit, which if I decide to carry it, I definitely would. And everyone should definitely be posting in the comments below which of these do you think that you like the best, which would you like to try, because I could carry more than one. I don't have to choose just one.
There's no limit. Why limit yourself?
We could carry all of them. You never know.
Okay that's getting a little much, but yeah, no, that one was excellent. And correct me if I'm wrong, when you're doing a lighter roast, and you did say this was more of a lighter roast, you have a higher acidic content, as if you're doing a darker roast, you have a lower acidic content.
So I'm not sure. So when we're saying acidic, it's important to quantify exactly what we're talking about. So in relation to coffee, it's typically referring to tasting notes, not acidity.
Okay.
So I'm not a chemist and I don't play one on the internet. So if the pH is
sorry folks, 2D is out. The age of television is gone.
I'm not sure about the answer of does the pH change based on your roast development. I'm not 100% on that. And I mean, it's very possible that it may change. So with the statement about your tasting notes, yes. Lighter roasts, because the darker you roast something, the more you take out the flavor notes that come from the acidity of the coffee.
Right.
And that's the general rule of thumb. And of course, you add other flavors. You add, roastiness and nutty flavors. You add chocolatey flavors. If you go too far, you add some smoky flavors that are typically undesirable.
Yeah.
Of course, the people that are using wood-fired roasters are going to add some caveats there, but that's a very, very finite group of people. But
that would be very specialty. But honestly, when you're doing something old-fashioned like that, which I've always enjoyed, old-fashioned styles of how people used to make things, I would not mind that.
That would be fun.
But honestly, when you get to the point of where it's so roasted that it's burned or flash roasted, I'm like, I'm sorry.
That's different. Now, I mean, so I knew a guy that grew up in Jordan, and he was telling me about how the Jordanians made their coffee traditionally, and so it's true in a pretty significant swath of the Middle East. They have these cast iron pans that have big long handles.
Yes!
And they roast the coffee over the fire, and then they immediately serve the coffee right after it's roasted, which is like breaking all the rules in, traditional specialty coffee.
I have read, and I did have a book, it's called The Book of Coffee and Tea, which I will have to get to you if you haven't heard of it. Their coffee ceremony was actually more intricate and there were more steps involved, and it was more lengthy than the traditional Japanese tea ceremony. I would have loved to go back in time and see that, but they did mention those flat roasting pans where they literally just went from fire to cup.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I've seen just some videos of it, and I'm like, I could watch a video and try to replicate it myself, but I'm like, there's just you gotta learn something like that from someone that grew up doing it. So I need to find someone that grew up in the Middle East doing that. They can say, hey, this is how Granddad always used to do it.
Well, on that note, shall we continue?
The next one is a coffee from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I have never had a coffee from here before. So this is a brand new experience for me.
I think, I can't remember, I knew the smell when you had me give the beans a whiff. It did bring back a memory for me, so I can't remember if I have had this one before or no.
It may be very similar to an Ethiopian. Because I know there are typically a decent number of.
It does smell very similar to Ethiopian.
Oh, that's bright.
Oh boy, that dances across your tongue.
Oh, that's interesting. That's like lemongrass.
I was gonna say I have a hint of lemon. This would actually make a really good cold brew, really refreshing.
I might have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes, I can definitely see this in a cold brew.
Oh, it's delicious. It is a little grassy. And that's one of those flavor notes that can be really weird for people if they're not used to it being in coffee.
If someone would taste this and not know the different styles of coffee, they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the worst coffee in the world. But no, honestly, this is really, really good. Oh, that's excellent. Oh, that was really good.
So yeah, lemongrass, a little bit of almond, and then it definitely finishes with that grassy notes, which
almost wheat.
I was getting a little bit of a tannic finish, which is
wheat or barley.
I can see the barley.
That was definitely on the very back, kind of the back of the tongue.
But it does have that tannic finish that I typically get from grassier coffees, and that's like think of the tannins you would get in black tea.
Oh yes.
So that it's definitely a unique coffee. That one I would have to keep light. I would probably almost just do exactly what I did with it.
I wouldn't go any darker with that.
Yeah, certainly.
Something tells me in the taste that if you would go darker, you would get almost that burnt flavoring or that feel in your mouth.
There are ways that you can get around that. You have to be So you have to be really careful about how much heat you're pushing into it going into first crack. And if you give it at the beginning of the roast, when you first put your coffee beans into the roaster, if you have your burners off and just let it acclimate to the temperature for the first 30 to 60 seconds, then that can give you a slower development on the front end, and it allows it's a lot gentler on the coffee, so that you're far less likely to have any weird off notes. So there are ways that you could make it darker, but I don't think that flavor wise it would really be ideal for that coffee.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either, because that was very refreshing.
So this is the last two are both from Ethiopia. So this one is
I have had this one before.
Well, you've had something like this one. I don't know that this is probably a different lot.
No, we did actually, when I used to work in a coffee roastery years ago, and they did have an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, and it was a very unique flavor. I brought that home to my parents. And
Was it a natural?
I don't know if it was a natural. I know that
So I mean,
whenever they would do it decaf, they did the water decaffeination rather than
Swiss water.
The Swiss water decaffeination, rather than something that was more toward the formaldehyde. Realm.
The decafs that I use are either Swiss water process or the sugarcane process, and the sugarcane process is phenomenal. It's just as clean as Swiss water.
I have never had one with the sugarcane process.
I'll have to get you some.
Please
it's
and
delicious.
thank you.
Yeah. So this is the Ethiopian Yirgacheffe.
It smells so good.
Oh, that's good.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
That's getting some lemon. Are you getting any blueberry?
Oddly enough, you know that feeling you get on your tongue when you eat a fresh blueberry?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
This is the first. I've been looking for an Ethiopian where I actually taste some blueberry, and I'm finally getting a little bit of it. I feel like
oddly enough,
I'm almost getting lemon more.
I'm getting a hint of like a really dark chocolate, like a 95% dark.
Like a bittersweet chocolate.
Yes, a bittersweet chocolate. And
Would you say it's bittersweet or baker's chocolate?
Not baker's chocolate.
Okay.
Not baker's
so
chocolate. It would be more like
a...
on the organic side of dark chocolate. That's what I'm tasting, and it is very good.
Lemon, blueberry, and dark chocolate is a pretty solid experience in my book.
Oh yeah, there's the lemon. There's the lemon.
That's a keeper.
That's really good. So I think so far...
You like the geisha the best?
The geisha and the Ethiopian are right at the top of my list.
Well, what I was going to mention earlier, Yirgacheffe is a whole region in Ethiopia. There's a huge number of coffees, mostly micro lot. Well, I don't know about mostly, but there are a lot of micro lots that come out of the Yirgacheffe region. So it could be it could be a huge variety of different farms that you could get coffee from. But this is a brand new coffee for the importer that I use. Oh, got a little bit of coffee ground there.
It's like, please don't choke. We don't need to render yourself catatonic.
Well, fortunately, we do have medical professionals in the house.
My husband works in a hospital, so all I have to do is scream and he'll come running down the hall.
So this is another Ethiopian. This is a Sidamo, which is a variety.
This one I have never had before.
This one is washed, not a natural.
Okay.
That one definitely has more body.
It does.
It's nuttier. It doesn't have the interesting lemon blueberry that the other one had.
I'm not sure how I feel about that one.
I don't like that one nearly as much.
No, neither do I. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it.
It's not a bad coffee.
No, it's not. It would be... I don't know. Would this go well like within a brew for a beer?
No. It would have to be a lot darker.
A lot darker than that?
Yeah, because with beer, when you mix it in the quantities to make a balanced I mean, typically you'd be doing either a porter or a stout, and you need to have the right ratios, and it's not a ton of coffee. So typically when I do that, I'll do a cold brew, and I'll have like a really, really like stupid high concentration cold brew, so that you can put as little liquid as possible, because your brewers typically want to maintain the same ABV as much as possible, the same alcohol content.
Right.
But I typically go for very heavy body with all chocolate on the back end, because it's only going to be the aromatics that really change the experience of the beer a lot. You'll get a little, if the flavor is different enough, then you'll get a little bit, but typically you have enough barley, interesting dark notes with the type of beer that you put coffee in, that it's primarily going to be the aromatics that make the biggest differentiation between that beer by itself and that beer with coffee.
Okay.
So lots and lots. So my original dark roast, which was a Brazilian pea berry, it was really, really aromatic, and it ended up being a very oily coffee. Just like the natural oils came out a lot. And that was perfect because it brought a ton of aromatics to the table and increased the body significantly. So it actually reduced the general bitterness of the beverage and of the whole beer. So it was actually a really interesting experience.
I probably could have handled that beer.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, a stout is a stout. So,
as you can tell, I'm not your beer girl. I'm more of, the actual libations and then wine.
I mean, I am a sucker for a good wine. I typically would go for like a Malbec or a Tempranillo. I don't know if you've had anything like that.
I don't think I have ever had those. So on your next visit, bring a bottle or two.
Sounds like a plan.
I would have to say that out of all of these, the two that really stood out the most would be these two. The
geisha and the Irgachev.
The geisha and the Irgachev. I'm not sure. Yeah, that last one.
That's a... It, like I said, it's not a bad coffee, but it's not... But I mean, it's a similar price to like the rest of the things here.
Right. I'm just not sure.
It's not nearly as good. The Irgachev is my front runner.
I could easily drink these black without anything in it.
100%.
But I think with this one, I'd have to add something.
Some Baileys.
Now you're getting somewhere. Now you are getting somewhere. Which, by the way, didn't you bring some?
You said your husband was like a wimp about whiskey or something. So I was like,
doesn't mean I'm
not. I'm sorry. I should have.
Well, we're gonna get him on that whiskey train. We'll get there.
He just needs to develop a palate for it.
He will. He's more of your stout IPA man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for stouts, but I'm real picky about my IPAs. They have to be like perfectly balanced. They have to be juicy and lots of citrus to justify the amount of bitterness in that.
Okay, we're changing the whole program. We're going from coffee now over to the alcohol region. We're IPAs. And all
I don't discriminate. I mean, like, I'll be a snob about everything.
That I can believe.
At any rate, so everyone definitely post in the comments. Let me know what you think you'd love to try. I really like the Arabica as well. Those two, the Irgachev and the Geisha. The Geisha is significantly more expensive just because there's a huge amount of work that goes into that. So I'm not sure that'll be
this
the
will
best
be maybe
option.
Something down the road.
I would probably have to charge a little bit more than my typical $14 a bag, and I prefer not to do that. I don't want to get too crazy expensive. Like you see some. Like Onyx Coffee Lab, they're charging like $18 to $22 for a 10-ounce bag, and I'm just like, not that I don't value what you're doing. That's still crazy talk. That's a lot of money for that much coffee.
That is quite a significant amount.
But with everything else here, I can definitely maintain the same price point.
Now, if this is at this point for pricing. Not where you're wanting to go, then definitely.
Everything else, 100% is. The Irgachev is. I'm really feeling like that's the front runner. But I might get the Arabica as well. Anyway,
this one was also very good.
Because It's I love working directly with farmers because it means that there's no money is going to an importer.
And there's no middleman.
Yeah,
There's
so
no middleman.
the farmers are making so much more money, and I'm going directly to one specific family that I have an actual relationship with in Colombia.
That's so
fantastic.
special.
Yeah,
that is so special. And being a huge advocate of small family-owned businesses, definitely continue to put your efforts and your funding into that as well, because again, you are assisting them in an endeavor that they believe in.
Yeah.
And no one is in there going, oh, I need my share, or I need my share.
Yeah, there's none of that shenanigans.
Everyone who's putting the work into this is getting the reward for that.
And we need to we being like the coffee industry, we need to continue to do that kind of work.
Amen to that.
So is there anything that you'd like to add about any of your tasting vessels that we're using for this before we head out?
Actually, one vessel that I use primarily, or I make primarily, is not here at the moment. It is more of your standard shape, like the one you're using right now. That is just a normal cup. That is, I believe, an 8-ounce cup. I do a mug that is a 10 to 12 ounce with a specialized handle that I made for my father that doesn't allow your mug to slip when you're holding it. There's an actual area for your fingers to rest, and so you're not going to wind up spilling hot coffee on your lap. But this is pretty much my standard colorization for glazing. I do a marbling effect. You can't see it very well on this camera, but on some of my pictures on my Instagram page, which is at singing.wheel.ceramics. No dots. I'm thinking of a website. It's late, can you tell? But yes, at singing.wheel.ceramics, and you will see more close-ups of the marbling effect that you see on that are on at least 3 of these. But yes, primarily I'm working on mugs, cups, and for you in the future, espresso cups.
Yeah, we were having a conversation earlier on the very, very specific requirements.
Very specific.
I'd say
that's an understatement.
I'd say I'm sorry, but I'm also paying you money for it, so I don't feel sorry.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine.
All right. Well, this has been a huge amount of fun. So everyone, let me know which coffee you would prefer, and head over to coffeesmith.coffee, not .com, coffeesmith.coffee. If you want to pick up anything in the interim, I do have a medium roast. It's a pretty solid. From Honduras, and until I'm able to get this up and running, but that'll probably be, within the next 2 weeks, I'll release the next medium roast.
And also you can head over to my Instagram page. My Etsy shop will be eventually being put up on the page as a link. I do have a show coming up in March, a vendor show, and primarily my focus is on that at the moment. So after March 6th, definitely keep an eye out for that.
So Singing Wheel Ceramics, Coffee Smith Roasters. Hope everyone have yourself a pleasant day.